all of you, dear students. This is the second day we are meeting with Introduction to Information Technology. So I hope everyone is joined. Majority of you all have joined, as we can see on your meeting participants. We can see that majority of you have joined the lecture. But until your friends also keep joining, let's just quickly recap what we have learned during the last session. ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ යාළුවෝ තව ජොයින් වෙන ගමන් ඇති. අපි 8ට ලෙක්චර් එක පටන් ගන්න ඕන නිසා අපි දැන් ලෙසන් එක පටන්ගෙන ඉස්සෙල්ලාම අපි කලින් සතියේ මොනවද කතා කරේ කියලා චුට්ටක් අපි රීකැප් කරලා බලමු. So during the last session, we have told you the importance of information and communication technology, why it has become a very vital component of the society and why it has become very vital for the development of a country. Then we have also explained to you how information technology is a part of our life, how it has become embedded to our day-to-day life, our work life, and all the activities that we do on a daily basis. So then we introduced to you the difference between information and technology and how the term information technology has been created with the combination of the two terms information and technology. We also define this to you by using a generic definition, as well as we related some specific internationally recognized definitions on information and communication technology, as well as on information systems. So after that, we also told you that there is a difference between information systems and information technology. They might be used in similar situations, they might be related, but they have their own differences. So we talked about those differences during the last week as well. Right. Then we talked about different applications of computers in different contexts in our day-to-day life, right? We talked about how computers are used within our homes, and we also talked about how computers are used within education for educational purposes. And then we elaborated on how computers are used within the workplace. We also did an in-class activity related to this particular scenario, and you all actively participated to that activity. So moving on, we also talked about how computers are used on the go, right? How it provides mobility while on the go, how people can have access to computers, and how it makes everyday life easier for everyone, right? And finally, we also had a discussion on how IT has transformed certain popular industries. So you all contributed very well to this activity as well. And we hope you continue to keep that enthusiasm and active participation for the remaining part of the lecture series as well. And also just a small clarification at the beginning of today's lesson. Now a few students have asked about these assignments we had posted on the LMS. So just to let you know that these will be in-class assignments, and just like we had notified to you during the lecture last week, these will be we will be notifying you how this should be discussed and what sort of submissions we expect. Anyway, what you have to understand is that you don't have to worry about these assignments unless we expressively tell you that these will be evaluated. As of now, all the activities that we have posted on the LMS will be used for in-class discussions. We saw that some students had already initiated some of these activities, which is very good. It shows how enthusiastic you are on this course, but also to let you know that these will anyway be discussed broadly within our in-class discussion session. So you can bring in that knowledge you had done, all the homework and prior research you have done to the in-class discussions that we will be having today after this lecture. Right. So let's see from where we have to begin today. Right. So now we have during the last session talked about different applications of computers, right, in different contexts. Now I have a small activity for you. Could you take a few minutes and gather your thoughts around what you understand as a computer. How would you understand a computer? Right? Or how would you define a computer? What is the description you would give to me if I ask you what is a computer? Now, since we have talked about this a lot, I think you can come up with a comprehensive answer. අපි මේ පරිගණකයක් කියලා කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියන එකට ඔයගලන්ට පොඩි හැඳින්වීමක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්ද? දැන් අපි කලින් සතියේ කතා කරා පරිගණකයේ භාවිතාව වෙන විවිධ අවස්ථාවන් නේ. ගෙදෙද්දි වෙන්න පුළුවන්, අපේ රැකියා ස්ථානයේදී වෙන්න පුළුවන්, අපි මොකක් හරි වෙන වැඩක යෙදিলা ඉන්න අවස්ථාවේ අපි පාසලක ඉදි වෙන්න පුළුවන්, විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයකදී ඉන්න පුළුවන්, ඔන්න ඔය වගේ ගොඩාක් අවස්ථාවන් වලදී කොහොමද පරිගණක භාවිතා වෙන්නේ කියලා අපි කතා කරා. දැන් ඒ දැනුම භාවිතා කරලා සහ ඕගලන්ට තියෙන තව රිසෝසස් පාවිච්චි කරලා ඕගලන් දැන් ඉන්ටර්නෙට් ඇක්සස් තියෙනවා, ඕගලන්ට ඔල්රෙඩි අන්ඩර්ස්ටෑන්ඩින් එකක් තියෙනවා යම් මට්ටමකට. ඉතින් ඒ ඔක්කොම භාවිතා කළා ඕගලන්ට පුළුවන්ද කම්පියුටර් එකක් එහෙම නැත්නම් පරිගණකයක් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියන එකට පුංචි පැහැදිලි කිරීමක් ලබා දෙන්න. අපි පොඩි වෙලාවක් අරගෙන මේ ඇක්ටිවිටි එක කරමු. හරි මම හිතන්නේ එක group එකකට පොඩි ප්‍රශ්නයක් තිබිලා තියෙනවා join වෙද්දී ඒ හින්දා මම ආපහු repeat කරන්නම්. I think one group has had a small issue in connecting. So what I did so far was I recapped what we have discussed during the last session, and I gave you a small in-class activity in individual basis to tell me what is a computer. What is your understanding on the term computer? That is the activity I gave. පරිගණකයක් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා පොඩි පැහැදිලි කිරීමක් දෙන්න කියලා තමයි මම කිව්වේ. So I think we have a few answers. Let's see. So some of you have told that computer is an electronic machine used to process data. Some of you have told electronic devices used to store and process data. Then there is also an answer from Chapa saying computer is electronic program device with a set of introductions to perform specific tasks and generate results at a very high speed. And also there's an answer saying a programmable electronic device that performs operations and stores data. Right. So there are many answers coming in. So I think you have some sort of an understanding about what a computer is, but when we put all your answers together, I think we will be able to come up with a more comprehensive definition, right? You all have identified several important aspects of a computer, but let's see how we can put all of that together, right? So there are so many ways how you can define it, but let's just look at a generic understanding or generic definition that we can give, right? So as you all can see here, at this point, let's understand that a computer is a programmable electronic device that accepts data, performs operations on that data, and stores data or results as needed. Now, when looking at this definition also, you might be able to identify several important aspects related to computers. This says that a computer is programmable. What do you mean by programmable? Now, in last session also, we talked about computer programs, right? In very basic sense, in the basic level of understanding, programs can be identified as set of instructions that you provide to a computer. So a computer being programmable means that you can give instructions to a computer to get it do what you want to do, right? If you provide a set of instructions to a computer, the computer can follow that those instructions to achieve a set desired outcome, right? End achievement can be achieved by giving a set of instructions, right? That is actually that a computer is instructable, in other words. Right? A set of instructions can be provided. And also it's an electronic device, right? You already know that. And also mainly this definition focuses on the ability of a computer to accept data, right? Maybe in the form of inputs and then perform operations on that data. Certain changes can be done to that data which we feed to the computer. The data that we input to the computer can be made changes into certain changes, right? Let's look at technical terms that we can use to these words. And also the computer has ability to store those data and results or results as needed, right? After processing, this output can be stored, the information generated can be stored. Then also computers have the ability to follow instructions that we give to them, which we call programs, right? Which determine the task the computer will perform, which is why we identify the computer as a programmable device, right? Because they basically follow instructions that we give to the computer, right? So when looking at this definition, you can identify these basic operations we have listed down below. There should be a input of data, and then there should be a processing, there should be output, storage, as well as communications. Now, input, these are actually basic things. I don't think I need to elaborate on these things a lot. When you basically enter data into the computer, we call it an input, right? And like I mentioned in the definition, you perform certain operations on the data, make certain changes to the data set which you gave to the computer, which we refer to as processing. Then output, certain information will be presented, right? And then storage part is there, which involves in saving this processed data, saving the information output, right? Certain programs, and for the purpose of future use, maybe for communicating with other parties, you have to store this data. And also another important aspect is communicating. Once you generate a certain output, there might be certain stakeholders within the organization, also external to the organization, who need access to this output which we perform, right? For example, maybe let's say output generated by the finance department maybe have to be communicated to the human resource department, maybe for salary calculations, to the heads, to the directors, right? The board of directors, the CEO, likewise, they will have to be communicated. Also, certain interested party outside the organization, maybe our shareholders, right? Maybe business partners. So likewise, information communication part should be there. So when we combine all these parts together, we call this the IPOS cycle or the information processing cycle. Right? So information processing cycle basically includes input, processing, output, storage, and communications. Now, if we look at the simplest of examples, right? Just think a scenario where you are at a supermarket cash register, right? At a checkout. So what happens there? When you take your goods that purchased to the cashier, he or she will scan those goods with a barcode reader, right? So what is happening there when they scan the goods which you are going to purchase? Essentially, it's a data input, isn't it? So we feed the price of the product, the item type, right? product description, these things will be fed into the computer, which we can identify as the input, right? Then processing will happen where the computer will try to identify which type of product this is, right? Under which category this can be listed. And, the quantity that you have brought, right? You have bought. So all these things will happen in the form of data processing, right? So after processing, what happens, there will be, you will be displayed the summary of the items that you are going to purchase, right? The item name, the price, maybe the total price, and the quantities that you have brought will be displayed on the cash register. That is equivalent to output. And also a bill will be printed. So printing the bill, once again, also an output, right? And this information will be updated with the internal systems of the supermarket. And, there will be a storage of data happening. Why? Because when you purchase one item, our inventory will change, right? Our stock will go down by the number of items you purchased. Also, you will have to update the sales system equivalent to the value of the items you purchased. So these things will be stored within the systems of the supermarket, which is equivalent to the storage, right? Then this information can be communicated, like I mentioned earlier, to the desired parties, right? Interested parties. So likewise, you can think of many scenarios how these things happen in day-to-day life. So basically what you have to understand is that these are the basic operations we identify within a computer. And also, when we talk about data, even during the last session, you gave so many examples. It can exist in many forms, right? Maybe simple as certain words that are there in a letter, right? And then maybe images that you identify in a photograph. And also they can be numbers in a budget, right? They can be notes on a song. So all these things can be identified as data. When it comes to information, we basically try to answer some question or address a certain question and provide answers to that question in terms of information, right? For example, what is the total number of students who gained university entrance within 2019? Right? What is the nature of the sales performance during the last 3 months? So when we answer those questions, essentially we are providing information to the desired parties after processing that meaningless data, right? Okay. So then if we move on, I think that part, basic operations, is clear to you. So this figure once again illustrates those basic operations in detail, right? So this figure shows how addition of two numbers is happening within a computer. Right? දැන් අපි මෙච්චර වෙලා කතා කරේ පරිගණකයක් හා සම්බන්ධ මූලිකම කාර්යයන් කීපයක් තමයි අපි කතා කරේ. හරි? දත්ත ආදානය, දත්ත සැකසුම, දත්ත ප්‍රතිදාන, එතකොට අපි කියනවා දත්ත ගබඩා කිරීම සහ sannivedana කියන මේ මූලික කාර්යයන්. එතකොට මේ ෆිගර් එකෙන් අපිට පෙන්නන්නේ ඒකට අදාළ පොඩි උදාහරණයක් කොහොමද මේ කම්පියුටර් එකක් ඉලක්කම් දෙකක් එකතු කරලා එයා output එක ලබා දෙන්නේ. So it's basic. You enter two numbers, then the addition will happen with the computer and then the output will be displayed and the storage or the output will be saved for future use. Right? Then we move on to data versus information, right? So like I mentioned earlier, I don't think I need to explain this again because during the last session also I explained this to you. So yeah, so you can read out this on your own and try to gain an understanding on what is data and what is information, right? And you all also know about what is information processing. So I'm not going to go into detail. You can leisurely read out this and gain a basic understanding. But if there are any questions on how you understand this, anything that is not clear, please feel free to inquire them on the chat and we will respond to your questions. Right. So moving on, we come to another important section in this particular chapter. Now we are going to talk about computer generations, right? So computers if I rather say the basic operations attached to a computer have existed for a very long period of time, right? So although not known as the basic computer that we use today, basic operations such as certain processing of information have been there in existence since a very long time, right? So first, the point says that computer in the way we know is actually a fairly recent invention. It's not that old. The computer as we know does not have a very long history, but history of computers can be referred in terms of generations, based on basic features that you can identify on those computers, the nature of the performance of those computers, and let's say the nature of processings that happen, the people who use these computers. So based on several set of criteria like this, we can often classify these computers into generations based on certain common features they have, right? So each of these generations have their own major technological breakthrough, their own major technological introduction, and major highlight, which is unique to that particular generation. So if we talk about the pre-computers, right, and the early computers, that is the age before year 1945, right? You may heard of these terms such as abacus, slide rule, mechanical calculator. Now, especially this abacus, which was used for the purpose of adding numbers, you may have heard in your school level studies as well, introduced by Dr. Herman Hollerith during the as far as going far back as 500 BC, right? These things were introduced before the computer was in existence a long time back, right? That's why I mentioned, although the computer as we know it is fairly recent, certain applications of computer, certain operations have been in existence for a long time. So then abacus, slide rule, mechanical calculator, punch card tabulating machine, sorter. You can search these things on the internet and gain additional idea on these things as well. So all these come under the pre-computer age, right? Or the early computers. So did you also know that this Dr. Herman Hollerith, who introduced this concept of punch card tabulating machine, which has been provided on the slide as well, was the his company was the one which later on converted into IBM, which is popularly known as IBM or International Business Machines, right? Which was used for during the 1890s, right, for United States census evaluations. So back then, it took a long time for these information processings. Did you know that in order to complete these census processings, they took more than 2 years during those period, right? So although computers and applications were there in existence long time back, the performance of those computers was very different, right? In terms of processing speed, they were very slow and there were certain difficulties. But still, they are considered as effective when compared with pen and paper based evaluations, right? So before we move on to in detailed analysis on computer generations, I would like to share this video with you.
In computer history, electricity was invented, so computers began using electric power. This led to the rapid development of computers. Let's discuss how the modern computer evolved generation after generation. After generation. The computers that were developed from 1942 to 1955 were called the first generation computers. The first generation computers used vacuum tubes. A vacuum tube consists of a glass bar and wire. The wire is used electronic numerical integrator and calculator was a first-generation computer. The second-generation computers were developed between
So it's all right, even if you can't clearly hear the voice of the person who's dubbing the video, because the key highlight of each clip has been provided below the image, right? So don't worry, the key highlight of each image has been provided.
Vacuum tubes, the computers became much smaller in size. They also became faster and cheaper. 1965 to 1975 was the period of the third-generation computers. Integrated circuits were introduced during the development of the third-generation computers. An integrated circuit, or IC, is as small as a transistor, but it can work as fast as thousands of them. Integrated circuits made computers faster, cheaper, and smaller than the second-generation computers. They used less electricity and made fewer mistakes. The computers developed since 1975 up to the present are called the fourth-generation computers. The fourth-generation computer uses microprocessors. A microprocessor consists of a small silicon chip on which thousands of circuits are placed. The fourth-generation computers are smaller, portable, and cheaper. They use less electricity and produce less heat. Computers that are currently being researched and developed are the fifth-generation computers. These computers are the most advanced computers. Scientists are now trying to develop fifth-generation computers in a way that they can think on their own. This is called artificial intelligence. Robots work on this technology. Now try to answer this question. Which of the following terms is associated with the
Right. So I think that provided you a basic understanding of the major generations of computers, right? So that is an introduction to what we are going to discuss next.
computers?
So let me next share with you
Second generation
an introduction to these computer generations that we are going to talk about. Right.
computers. The second generation
First generation of computers, right? So like you saw in the video as well, the first generation expands between roughly, if we can identify, right, this is a rough figure, there's no exact demarcation as to this is the year, but roughly we can identify it between 1946 and 1957, right? So the main device which enabled the computers during this particular generation was vacuum tubes, right? So during this period of time, it is said that these computers consumed a lot of electricity, right? A lot of electricity and generated a lot of heat. Also, in addition to that, these generation computers consumed a lot of space, right? Almost entire rooms had to be vacated in order to accommodate these types of computers, right? So this ENIAC and UNIVAC, right? Electronic numerical integrator and computer, and also UNIVAC, if expanded, we can say understand as universal automatic computer. These were the main two computers we can identify during the first generation. So also now during this period, it took several days or weeks sometimes, right, to complete the after completing one information processing, it took sometimes several days or weeks to once again rewire these computers and to get it to operationable status once again, right? So it was hugely time consuming during the first generation. So then after that, when ENIAC was introduced, right, calculations could be performed under 2 minutes by this computer, but still then again, after doing these operations, once again, they had to be rewired like I mentioned earlier, right? So another important thing is that during this generation, only one particular problem could be solved. by using these computers, right? Not like our time. Then if we move on to the second generation, which can be identified between 1958 and 1963, there was a major technological development. From using vacuum tubes, it was shifted to using transistors. Right? This was a major technological development during the second generation. So transistors are actually a small device which is acting like a switch, right? Acting like a switch to open or close a certain electronic circuit, right? So this transistor was the main technological application that was used to run computers during the second generation. So when compared with first generation, the computers were considerably smaller and also they were more powerful, had better processing power, and also it was cheaper or more affordable, and also more efficient, and reliability had increased by this time. And these punch cards and magnetic tapes were used to input and store data during this age. So also a quick note to all of you in this point, we will be explaining to you more about these input devices, output devices, all these things in detail as we move forward in this lecture series. input devices, output devices ගැන ඔයගලන්ට in detail තව කතා කරනවා, storage ගැන මේ හැම දෙයක් ගැනම in detail මේ lecture series එකේදී කතා කරනවා. ඒ නිසා මෙතෙන්දි මම මේ දේවල් ගැන ඔයගලන්ට ගොඩක් elaborate කරන්න යන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් අපි generations දෙකක computers ගැන ඉගෙන ගත්තා. generation 1 එකේ vacuum tubes base කරගෙන තමයි computers operate උනේ mainly. Then first generation එකට second generation එකටදී transistors use කරා. දැන් අපි බලමු third generation එකේ computers වල මොකද්ද තියෙන විශේෂත්වය. So third generation of computers are attached to this usage of integrated circuits. So we can identify this period between 1964 and 1970, age like that, right? So what is special about the integrated circuit is that many transistors and other electronic circuits were embedded on one single silicon chip, right? That is how we identify an IC or an integrated circuit. Right, so this was the main technological development based on which computers were performing during the third generation, right? And also another special addition during this generation was, now before this, these keyboards and monitors had not been introduced widely within the community, right? Computing community. But during the third generation, these things were introduced. And also the obvious changes were there. Like computers were smaller than the both previous generations, and also the results of the processings were more reliable, as well as hard drives were used as storage during this particular period in time, right? So those are the things special about the third generation of computers. And then we move on to the fourth generation of computers. Then හතරවෙනි පරම්පරාවට හතරවෙනි අවධියට තමයි අපි යන්නේ පරිගණක භාවිතය සම්බන්ධයෙන්. So fourth generation is identified since 1971 to the present. We can consider roughly as the fourth generation of computers. So what is the main technological development based on which computers are performing during this age? It is the microprocessors, right? So you all have definitely heard of the term microprocessors. Is it something, this processing capability is something we look at, and the capacity is something we look at when we purchase a computer or a laptop, right? So microprocessors are actually having all these processing capabilities of a computer on a single chip, right? And it is heavily condensed, right, in a very miniature form. Therefore, this helped the computers to greatly reduce in size, right? And computers were very much fit for personal use due to these inventions, right? So in this generation, we can mainly identify two categories, such as IBM PCs and Apple Macintosh computers, right? So when we talk about these IBM PCs, we will talk about these in detail when we talk about different types of computers during the latter part of this lecture as well, right? So I hope to talk about this more when we move forward. So for now, have an understanding that basically we can identify these computers under manufactured by IBM as well as Apple, right? So they have their own hardware software requirements, their own different compatibilities, which you will get to know more about. Right. So during the fourth generation of computers, we heavily understand the use of keyboards, mice, monitors, and printers. Right? මේ ආදාන ප්‍රතිදාන උපාංග ගොඩාක් එකතු වුණා මේ fourth generation එක වෙද්දි computers වලට. අපි යතුරු පුවරුව, අපි mouse එක, එතකොට පරිගණක තිරය, ඒ වගේම printers වගේ output devices නේ. ඒ වගේ දේවල් ගොඩාක් එකතු වුණා මේ generation එක වෙනකොට. And also the usage of magnetic disks, flash memory, optical disks were introduced as storage options during the fourth generation. Like I mentioned earlier, we will be talking about these things in detail, right? About all these types of devices will be explained to you in detail if you join with the latter sections of this lecture series. Then it was during the fourth generation that the concept of computer networks, wireless technologies and internet were also introduced, right? අපි මේ කතා කරන පරිගණක ජාල, රැහන් රහිත තාක්ෂණ, එතකොට අන්තර්ජාල තාක්ෂණය මේ හැම දෙයක්ම කතා වෙන්න පටන් ගත්තේ. මේ දේවල් ඉන්ට්‍රොඩියුස් වෙලා වැඩි දුරටත් දියුණු වෙන්න පටන් ගත්තේ මේ කියන හතරවෙනි පරම්පරාව ඇතුලේ. දී කියලා තමයි සැලකෙන්නේ. Right. So I think you have a basic understanding about the differences between these generations now. So if we look at the fifth generation of computers, this is actually now and also the future. So therefore this generation actually is open to a lot of possibilities, right? So these generations boundaries have not yet been clearly identified, or the clear classification cannot be provided to this generation yet. Why? Because it is still evolving, right? It is still developing, right? Technological developments are coming every day, right? It is at a rapid stage at this point. So we never know what will be the full potential of the fifth generation, which we are living in at the moment, right? So in basic understanding, we can see that artificial intelligence is gaining popularity when it comes to the discussion of computers in the fifth generation, right? So this artificial intelligence, I told you during the last session also, allows machines to think for themselves, right? Without the human aid, right? And then the computers have the ability to think, reason, and learn from what they have learned in the past, and they can be utilized for future decision making by the computer itself, right? So these robotics, concepts of robotics have become very popular with this concept. And also, rather than just, the regular keyboard input, which we are familiar with, now the forms of input to these computers have become multiplied, right? There are so many ways in which data can be input to these devices at the moment, right? There is voice input, there is touch input, right? There is speech recognition. And so if you consider this Alexa, right? If you consider this Siri introduced by Apple and all these technologies, what do? They have expanded the potential of these instructions that we can give to the computer, right? So therefore, these technologies are evolving at a very rapid pace, right? So not only just that, there is biometric recognition as well, right? Iris and face recognition, face ID, all these things are there, and they are still evolving, still in the process of evolving, right? So these computers in the fifth generation are specially expected to be built or constructed in the form of optical computers, right? So what is special about optical computers? Now these computers, instead of using electrons, they use light, right? Then tiny computers, right? Very small miniature computers which use nanotechnology. So nanotechnology is something we talked about during the last session as well. And few students came up with very interesting facts on nanotechnology during in-class discussions during the last week as well, right? So these technologies have become very incidental in they have provided a huge leap in the form of providing these miniature or tiny sized computers, right? And then also general purpose computers are also there, right? Which can be built onto desks, right? Which you used at home or at office, at school, university, and home appliances, right? Built into home appliances and also everyday devices, right? So we talked about these computers in detail during last session as well. So I hope I don't need to elaborate on these things a lot. දැන් අපි පස්වන පරම්පරාව ගැන කතා කරද්දි ගොඩක් අපි මේ ආටිෆිෂල් ඉන්ටෙලිජන්ස් ගැන කතා කරනවා. අපි කෘත්‍රිම බුද්ධිය කියන සංකල්පය ගැන කතා කරනවා. පරිගණක වලටම සිතීමේ හැකියාව තියෙනවා. ඒගොල්ලන්ටම ඒ හිතලා ඒක තුලින් ඒගොල්ලන්ට ලර්නින් ප්‍රොසෙස් එකක් එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒගොල්ලන්ම ඉගෙනගෙන future decision making එහෙම නැත්නම් ඉදිරි තීරණ ගැනීම පරිගණකය හරහාම කිරීමේ හැකියාව පරිගණක වලට අපි ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. හරි. එතකොට මේ කෘත්‍රිම බුද්ධිය කියන එක අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා ගොඩක් විශාල වාසිදායක විදිහේ තාක්ෂණයක් වෙයි කියලා අනාගතයේ වෙද්දී මේ පරිගණක සහ පරිගණක ආශ්‍රිත පරිසරය වෙනස් වීම ගැන අපි කතා කරනකොට. So I think that must have provided you a brief understanding about the generations of computers. Now we talked about 5 main generations, during which period they were popular, what was the main technological breakthrough which caused the generation of these eras, as well as certain features. You also can find new features of these generations and add to your knowledge, and anything other than what we have discussed in class, you can add in, have your discussions with friends and broaden your knowledge, right? So this particular picture shows a summarized version of the generations which we have already discussed. Now, as I told you earlier, pre-computing era has been illustrated here. I told you about this punch card tabulating machine, right? Which was used before the first generation, right? And then we came to first generation. I told you that they consumed a lot of space, entire rooms sometimes, right? So then second generation, it was moved to second generation. We understand mainframes and usage of transistors during this generation. You can see how the size of computers have reduced, isn't it? If you compare between this and this image, you can clearly see. And moving on to the third generation, once again, the computers have become even more smaller and they have been used for personal use, right? Rather than for commercial or industrial use. Then the fourth generation computers are here, which are based on microprocessors, right? So some time back, these were popular, and it is a elaboration or a evolution of this computer that we see presently in the form of laptops, right? Notebooks, tabs, and etc. And the fifth generation has been illustrated here, which is open to many possibilities, right? So I think you have a basic understanding now about the different computer generations. So any questions you have, please feel free to ask them. Right. So moving on. Now, when it comes to these computers, there are also a party called a computer user, as well as there are computer professionals. Now, computer users, who are also termed as end users, are generally the people who are using a computer to gain some sort of outcome out of it, right? To perform their daily tasks, to perform certain, to get certain output that they desire, or to obtain certain information that they want. So you and me are essentially end users in many capacities, right? But when it comes to computer professionals, right? People who are attached to different professions related to this subject of computing, information technology, information systems, right? So there are a range of professions that are attached to this. Now here we have only listed out a few, but there are so many other professions when it comes to professions related to computers. Now you have heard about programmers, right? System analysts are there. Then database administrators, network administrators, they have their own roles to play, their own different responsibilities attached to information systems, computers, right? For example, now programmers mostly work with the back end of systems. They write the instructions which we talked about in the morning, which they want the computer or which they want a particular system to perform. And then there are system analysts who are mainly concerned with analyzing the requirements of a system, designing a desirable system, and implementing that system, getting other people to use this system, right? And then also other roles such as database administrator and network administrator also have their own responsibilities. So I'm not going to elaborate these things in detail, but just for your understanding that there are a wide spectrum of professions that you can enter into when you gain knowledge regarding these IT related concepts or computer related concepts, right? So මේ අපි computers ගැන කතා කරද්දී computers වල end users ලා ඉන්නවා, පරිශීලකයෝ ඉන්නවා, ඒ වගේම අපි කියනවා professional level එකකින් වෘත්තීය මට්ටමින් පරිගණක හා සම්බන්ධ වෙන පාර්ශවයන් ඉන්නවා. හරිද? ඒ වෘත්තීය මට්ටමේ පරිගණක හා සම්බන්ධ වෙන පාර්ශවයන් වෙනුවෙන්ම නිමවුණු විවිධ වෘත්තීන් අපි සමාජයේ ගොඩක් දකිනවා. මෙතන අපි කීපයක් විතරයි list out කරලා තියෙන්නේ. තව මේ වගේ වෘත්තීන් ගණනාවක් තියෙනවා. මේ IT computers කියන field එකත් හා එක්කව සමාජයට හඳුන්වලා දීලා තියෙනවා. Right? So next we are going to talk about another aspect in this chapter, which is types of computers. Now you all know how computers are used in different contexts, right? Usage of computers in different contexts, and you have an idea about different generations of computers. Now let's look at different types of computers which are being used in different contexts for different purposes. Right? So in this particular chapter, we hope to cover 6 different types of computers, and we are going to classify these types within each of these title. We are going to find sub-classifications where necessary. Right? So first, let's have a look at embedded computers. Right? So we talked about embedded computers up to a certain extent during the last session as well, right? Even during the in-class discussions, you brought up this concept of embedded computers as well, right? So in embedded computers, especially what happens is you embed a tiny computer into a product. You attach a tiny computer to a product, and this computer is designed to perform specific tasks for that product, right? අපි computer එකකට බද්ධ කරනවා, නැත්නම් සම්බන්ධ කරන කුඩා පරිගණකයක්, මේ පරිගණකයට හැකියාව තියෙනවා අපි මේ ඒක බද්ධ කරපු product එක එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒ technical device එක සම්බන්ධ විශේෂිත වූ යම් කාර්යයන් ඉටු කිරීමේ හැකියාව මේ පරිගණකයට ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. මේ වගේ applications ගොඩාක් වර්තමානයේදී දකින්න පුළුවන්. ඔයගලන් ගෙදෙද්දිත් විශේෂයෙන්ම මේවා ගොඩක් දුරට use වෙනවා. Right? These are being heavily used in domestic context, right? In work context, for personal use, your own use, right? So what you have to understand is that these are not general purpose computers. They have specific purpose. They have a specific set of actions and tasks which they perform, right? So can you give me a few examples to embedded computers other than what has been mentioned here? Things that you can also think about. Now here we have given household appliances, thermostats, sewing machines, AV equipment, cars, even self-driving cars, right? So anything else you can think of where embedded computers are being used? Maybe you all are already using these kinds of things. Can you give a few examples? Now there is a question on the chat to explain more about optical computers, which I talked earlier, right? So optical computers actually, rather than just using electricity, right? Let's say for usual computers, electric current is what we use now. But in optical computers, what happens is you use visible light, right? Light in order to perform digital computations or to perform certain instructions on this computer rather than using electricity. Right? That is what we basically understand as an optical computer. It is based on light beams, we call sometimes infrared rays, right? So this is the technology that is used to perform tasks on these computers. But you don't need to know these things in depth, right? Just for your understanding that optical computers are a technological breakthrough that we expect. So any answers so far? Right, so there's another question to explain an integrated circuit, right? So integrated circuit, if I quickly go back here, I talked about integrated circuit when I was talking about the third generation of computers. So here, basically, once again, an understanding of an integrated circuit is that it's a very small device, right? A very small set of electronic circuits which is mounted on or which is assembled onto a semiconductor, right? You have talked about semiconductors perhaps when you were learning science for your school lessons, right? So on a piece of semiconductor, you integrate a set of circuits which have the capacity to perform these operations within a computer, right? So, but microprocessor was an advanced version of these integrated circuits with better processing capability and better capacity to perform operations on a computer. Once again, that is, I'm just relating for your understanding, but you don't need to know these things in depth at this level, right? So I think we have a few answers. Um, Right, so there are ATM machines, printers, DVD players, digital cameras, yes. So very good, right? You have an understanding about how embedded computers are used in day-to-day life. So here also we have related a few embedded computers which are being used for different purposes, right? And also they have been embedded to dishwashers, refrigerators, televisions, treadmills even, right? This gym equipment that you use. So likewise, and if we take cars, these computers embedded to the cars have the ability of notifying the user of the, let's say, possible collisions, automatic braking, and then rear views, right? Vehicles that are approaching at different angles, which the driver cannot see. And if the car needs any oil filter changes, if the tires are under, let's say, underinflated. So the computers embedded to cars at the modern scenario have the ability of letting the car user know all these things and a lot more, right? So what you have to basically understand is that it's a tiny computer attached to another device, right? Then the second type of computer we talk about is mobile devices, right? So mobile devices, which you are already familiar with, is once again, it is a very small device. So what do you mean by the word mobile? The mobile කියලා කියන්නේ පාස්වෙන් කොහේ හරි රැගෙන යා හැකි කියන අර්ථයෙන් නේද? ඒතර mobile device essentially has this very fundamental usage, right? It is a very small in size and it can be very easily carried from one place to another. And this device has a built-in computer technology or built-in internet capability, right? So what is the most popular mobile device that you use? Your smartphone, right, which is very popular among you all, which is obviously a mobile device. So in most of the contexts, these mobile devices, they are often based on a mobile phone with basic capabilities such as ability to take calls and send SMSs, take pictures, connect to the internet, listen to music, download music, watch videos, and etc., which you're already familiar with, right? So typically these mobile devices, as you already know, have small screens and they have keyboards. So these things have facilitated these devices to be carried very conveniently from one place to another. Let's say you're on the go, although you're not stationed at one place, mobile devices make it convenient for the users to access the internet from wherever you are, maybe to check your bank details, maybe to complete a bank transaction, right? Or maybe to navigate, right? If you're going somewhere, it is very easy to navigate yourself by connecting to the internet using your mobile device that you're using. And if you want to get news updates wherever you are in the world, so mobile devices have made it convenient for users to gain access to information and complete their day-to-day tasks as well as work-related tasks very conveniently. You can even check emails and things like that, right? You're already familiar. So typical examples of mobile devices have been listed out below. Smartphone, tablet, smartwatch, handheld gaming devices, portable digital media players, other personal devices with certain internet capabilities. So I'm not going to explain these things to you because you all will be able to explain this to me even better than me, right? Because that is how much you are attached to mobile devices at the present, right? So and also we to some extent built a discussion on these things during the last lecture as well. Then we move on to another type of computers, which is personal computers. Now, what is a personal computer? It is once again a computer system which is designed to be used by a single person at a given time, right? Also referred to as a microcomputer and sometimes. And this personal computer can be a desktop, a portable computer, thin client and internet appliances. So our discussion on personal computers today is going to be based on this classification of desktop, portable computers, thin client and internet appliances, right? So first let's have a look at desktop computers, right? So what is special about desktop computers? Just like the name suggests, ඒ නමෙන් කියනවා වගේම desktop කියන්නේ desktop එකක් අපි කියනවා desk එකකට fit කරන්න පුළුවන් computer එකක්. A computer that can be fit on or can be next to a desk, right? So these desktop PCs can use towel case, which means this can be actually kept in a vertical position, right? Vertically shaped ones, as well as desktop case, which is horizontally shaped or flatly lying on a table or on the floor, right? And also all-in-one computers. For example, these especially Macintosh computers and all, right? There are these all-in-one computers where you cannot or you do not specifically distinguish a system monitor separately, right? All things have been integrated to one. So all-in-one desktop computers are also there, right? So Apple computers are specializing in this regard. Then these desktop computers, they can be PC compatible or they can be Macintosh compatible, right? Like I mentioned to you earlier also, if you remember, that we understand two different classifications, right? So when it comes to these PC compatible computers, we say we also refer to them as IBM compatible computers and also Windows compatible computers. අපි කියනවා මේ Windows IBM වගේ platforms use කරන computers අපි PC compatible කියලා හඳුන්වනවා. Right? Then the hardwares and softwares requirement of these computers need to be compatible with this particular set of computers, right? So for example, this Dell, HP, Acer and etc., they are typically using this Microsoft Windows platforms to operate, right? Then Macintosh, right? Manufactured by Apple, right? Their software is based on this Macintosh. and they use the Macintosh operating system. So they use their own set of different software than PC compatible software. Then PC compatible software will use current, sorry, PC compatible computers will use current softwares. Macintosh compatible computers will use current softwares, hardwares, වෙනස්. Right? ඔගලා මේ ගැන ගොඩාක් in-depth දැනුමක් මේ level එකේදී ලබා ගන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. නමුත් ඔයාලට basic understanding එකක් තිබ්බනම් හොඳයි. මේ වගේ විවිධ වර්ගවල computers තියෙනවා. ඒවට compatible වෙන විවිධ hardware software වර්ග තියෙනවා කියලා. So desktop PCs once again is not ideal if you want to carry it around, right? If you want to move these computers around, then desktop PCs is not your best option because this is not designed to be portable, right? Usually these are stationed at one place, which is special about desktop PCs. Right. Then there's a second type of computers called portable computers. Now, in contrast to desktop computers, right, portable computers can be carried around easily, right? Still, they are fully functional computers. The functioning capacities might be low when compared to desktop computers because you can attach multiple devices to these desktop computers and get a better usability sometimes. But still, in the current context, even portable computers, even to portable computers, you can attach multiple devices and get the usability that you want. But still, we say that it's ideal for carrying around, right? For personal use, professional use. So one type we can identify under portable computers is the notebook or laptop computers, which you are very familiar with, right? So we say they typically use a clamshell design. What is a clamshell? Now in a clamshell, where do you find clamshells? You find them in the sea, right? When you open them, you can find a pearl inside them. I hope you know what a clamshell is. So these notebooks, we say, they are designed to imitate or resembling this clamshell's structure, right? Where you can open up the keyboard and the monitor. Two separate parts are there and the monitor is hinged separately. Right? අපි කියනවා clamshell design එකකින් තමයි මේ laptops design කරලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා. Then tablet computers. You are once again familiar with this. You usually use a digital pen or you call it a stylus, which facilitates to touch the screen of a tablet. A picture of a tablet have been shown at the corner of the slide here, if you can see. So this pen or stylus facilitates interacting with this screen of the tablet. So tablets can be a slate as shown like this, right? One single piece of slate, or they can also be convertible, right? Maybe rotatable things are there, right? Foldable. So there are different versions and different configurations of tablets. Then hybrid notebooks or tablet computers, which has been illustrated right here at the bottom of the slide. This can function both as a notebook and a tablet computer. Notebook එකක් විදිහට tablet එකක් විදිහට දෙවිදිහටම function කරන්න පුළුවන්. අපිට ඕන keyboard එක convert කරලා නැත්නම් turn කරලා use කරන්න පුළුවන් laptop එකක් විදිහට එහෙම නැත්නම් tablet එකක් විදිහට. And both usabilities are there. So any questions you can ask, right? So I'm not actually explaining these things in details because you are very much technologically savvy generation, so you already have hands-on experience on most of these devices, but just to let you know the difference between these devices and to let you know how we can classify these things. Then netbooks is another type of personal computers. Now what happens here is they are considerably smaller in size, lighter in weight, and also they are less expensive than the conventional notebooks that you find in market, right? So netbooks are basically designed to access certain internet-based applications, maybe for information searching, right? Certain resources that you need to access and download. So it is important that you understand that netbooks mainly provides a greater level of convenience to the user. And also we identify that they have a longer battery life. And also what you have to understand is that these types of notebooks, tablets, these hybrid notebooks, all these things work on rechargeable batteries, right? Just like mobile devices, which makes it very convenient for the user if they have availability of power, which can be recharged and used as and when required, right? So any questions on what we have discussed so far, please feel free to ask them. Once again, I'm telling you, I'm not elaborating on these things in detail into technical level because at this point, that understanding is not expected out of you. Right. Then another type of personal computers we can understand is thin client, or also known as zero client and internet appliances. So what is a thin client or network computer? How would you understand a network computer? This is basically a computer that is designed to access a network for processing of data and storage specifically, right? So in a network computer or a thin client, it is very cheaper or lower in cost, as well as you find the increased security attached to these computers, and it is quite convenient in maintenance purposes, right? So mainly, like we told you earlier, this is mainly used for connecting to network and processing data, but in terms of storage capacity, local storage, it is very limited, as well as sometimes there is no storage, no local storage found on these network computers. And also, unless there is a good network connection, you cannot work on this kind of computers, right? They are not able to function if there is no network. That is why we call them as network computers, basically, right? So these mobile thin clients, right? For example, these Chromebooks, they are designed to be used with certain online apps and storage that are compatible with those specific devices, right? And then internet appliances. So these internet appliances, they are specifically designed network computers, once again designed for internet access, right? So some of these can be for domestic purpose, right? They are being used in the home, and also sometimes they can be built or embedded onto other products like refrigerators or telephones, like we discussed earlier as well. So internet appliances, once again, can be a standalone device without having any connection to other devices. They can be specifically erected to achieve one specific task as a standalone device. And they can also have different applications. For example, for gaming consoles, you can embed internet appliances, right? Internet enabled gaming consoles essentially use these internet appliances. මේ ඉන්ටර්නෙට් appliances අපි මේවට network computers කියලා කියනවා. මේවා ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන්ම අන්තර්ජාල පාසුකම අන්තර්ජාල ප්‍රවේශය හරහා යම් කාර්යයන් ඉෂ්ට කරගන්න තමයි අපි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපි ගෙවල් වලදී පාවිච්චි කරනවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අපි එදිනෙදා භාවිතයට ගන්න ගෙදර දොරේ උපකරණ වලට මේවා embed කරලා එහෙම නැත්නම් සම්බන්ධ කරලා තියනවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම අපි කියනවා ගේමින් ඩිවයිසස් වලට අපි පරිගණක ක්‍රීඩා කරන ඒ විවිධ තාක්ෂණික උපාංග වලට මේව සම්බන්ධ කරලා තියන්න පුළුවන්. මේවා ස්පෙસિෆිකලිම යූස් වෙන්නේ ඉන්ටර්නෙට් එකට ඇක්සස් වෙලා යම්කිසි භාවිතයක් ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා. හරි? So there's a question on, can you please explain clamshell design? So don't worry about it that much. Clamshell design basically is, so if you Google the word clamshell, right? So that is an assignment I can give you for your own homework. So just Google the word clamshell and see the image that you get, and you will find the answer to the question you ask. අපි මොහොදු බෙල්ලෙක් කියලාද කියන්නේ clamshell එකකට සිංහලෙන්. අපි කියන සිප්පි කටු අපිට අරින්න පුළුවන් ඇතුලේ pearl එකක් තියෙන්නේ. ඒ clamshell එකක ඩිසයින් එකකට තමයි අපි කියනවා notebook එකක් එහෙම නැත්නම් laptop එකක් හදන්නේ. ඒ විදිහම අපිට කියනවා අරින්න වහන්න පුළුවන් විදිහට parts දෙකක් වෙන් කරලා keyboard and monitor, right? Separately monitor එක hinge කරලා හදන design එකට තමයි අපි clamshell design එකක් කියලා කියන්නේ. Don't worry about it too much. It's just a inspiration that we have gotten from the environment to build this device, right? Okay. So now we talked about 3 types of personal computers. Can you remember? We talked about desktop PCs, we talked about desktop computers, portable computers, and we talked about thin clients or zero client and internet appliances. Right. So in this particular figure, we have once again shown to you these examples of thin clients, Chromebooks, which we talked about, as well as certain cases where these internet appliances or network computers are embedded to devices, household devices like fridges. Now, smart fridge has been illustrated here, a part of a smart fridge where a computer is embedded to the fridge and they have the capability of performing certain operations on behalf of a user, right? They have, to some extent, they have their own learning and decision making capability with a little human intervention. Right. Then the fourth type of computer we are going to talk about is mid-range servers. Right. So then the fourth type of computers we are going to talk about is mid-range servers. Right? මොකද්ද mid-range server එකක් කියන්නේ? So mid-range server basically it's a medium-sized computer that has the ability to hold certain programs and data for a very small network or a specific usage, right? Within maybe a small geographical location, right? A very limited network. So in these mid-range servers, users can connect to these computers via a network, or a computer like a thin client or a dumb terminal, right? So don't worry about these technical terms too much. So we will be explaining these things to you as we go on, right? So these mid-range servers may consist of a collection of individual circuit boards, which we understand as blades. Right, so මේ circuit board එකක් circuit boards වල connection එකකින් තමයි මේ mid range servers හදලා තියෙන්නේ, right? අපි මේවට කියනවා blade servers කියලා, right? So basically through this the users have the ability to connect to the server. අපි කියන මේ server එකකට connect වෙලා computer එකක් use කරලා server එකට connect වෙලා අපි ඒක thin client කෙනෙක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, dumb terminal එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, network එකක් කරා එකට connect වෙලා පුළුවන් යම් කර්තව්‍යයන් ඒ පරිගණකය පාවිච්චි කරලා perform කරන්න, right? Maybe within a school, maybe within a hospital, these kinds of mid-range servers can be used for medical purposes, right? Maybe for diagnosis purposes, for patients diagnosis, මේ වගේ දේවල් වලට උදව් කරගන්න පුළුවන් mid-range servers කියන ඒවා, right? These are medium-sized computers that mainly operate within a limited network. Right? Then the fifth type is mainframe computers. Right. So mainframe computers are very powerful computers, right? And these are used specifically for industrial purposes, very large amounts of centralized data, right? It has a very powerful processing capacity, and its capacity to perform operations is considerably higher when we compare with personal computers, right? So these kinds of mainframe computers are being abundantly used in commercial purposes within certain schools, maybe, right? Banks, hospitals, universities, certain government offices, right? And also if your organization is located in multiple locations, right? If you're a large organization, so these mainframe computers are specifically located within climate controlled data centers, right? And also they are connected to the other parts of the company, maybe the other SBUs, maybe the other branches, right? They are connecting all these partners together using a network, right? So these mainframe computers, as the name itself suggests, they are very larger in size and very expensive and have a very powerful capacity than when we compare mid-range servers. Now mid-range servers, which are specifically limited to a small network, but when it comes to mainframe, this connectivity is very high and the ability to perform functions over this network is very high, and the coverage that the mainframe computers can give is very high when compared with mid-range servers. Usually mainframe computers are always under operation, right? So 24 hours we say mainframe needs to operate in order to smoothly function. If there's some sort of breakdown, then vital operations of the company may be broken down because the connectivity will be lost, and sometimes system downtimes you experience due to these things being sometimes deactivated, right? Therefore, we say that usually they have to operate 24 hours a day for maximum capacity and full functionality, right? So these mainframe computers are also called high-end servers or sometimes enterprise class servers. මේ mainframe computers ගොඩක් විට අපි භාවිතා කරන්නේ ගොඩක් විශාල ප්‍රමාණයේ ආයතනවල, එහෙම නැත්නම් අපි හිතමු හොස්පිටල් එකක, යුනිවර්සිටි එකක, ඒ වගේ ලොකු කන්ටෙක්ස්ට් එකක තමයි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ අපි. ඒ වගේම මේන් ෆ්‍රේම් එක හරහා අපිට නෙට්වර්ක් එකක් through කනෙක්ෂන් දෙන්න පුළුවන් මේ මේන් ෆ්‍රේම් එකේ තියෙන data වලට access කරන තවත් branches, එහෙම නැත්නම් organization units, SBUs ගණනාවකට අපිට කනෙක්ෂන් එකක් දෙන්න පුළුවන් මේන් ෆ්‍රේම් එක හරහා යම් ජාල තාක්ෂණයක් භාවිතා කරලා. එතකොට මේවා ගොඩාක් powerfulness එක අතින් වැඩි, ප්‍රමාණයෙන් විශාලයි, ඒ වගේම ඊටාම මිල අධිකයි. අපි කලින් කතා කරපු mid range servers වලට වඩා මේක ප්‍රමාණයෙන් ගොඩක් විශාලයි. අපි කියනවා mainframe computer එකක් ගොඩක් වෙලාවට දවසේ පැය 24ම වැඩ කරන එකක් වෙන්න ඕනි කියලා කියනවා in order to සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ඒකේ full capacity එක නැත්නම් full functionality එක ඒකට සම්බන්ධ වෙලා ඉන්න පාර්ශවයන්ට ලබා දෙන්න නම්, right? So those are the basic 5 types of computers that we are going to focus on today, right? So now here you can see an example of a mainframe computer. You can see in the background how huge it is, right? And how people are connected to the mainframe through a network, how it can be, this can be owned by a certain corporate, a set of companies or a university like I mentioned earlier. And multiple parties can at the same time access to gain information related to their company, right? Maybe based on business operations and etc. Then the final type of computer we are going to talk about is supercomputer, right? So this is the fastest, most expensive, most powerful type of computer than what we have talked about earlier, right? So these supercomputers generally they run single program at a time, and as fast as possible they have a very high processing speed, and they can give you an output in the fastest possible time, right? So these supercomputers are generally built by joining many different smaller computers, right? We call that a supercomputing cluster. තවත් පොඩා ප්‍රමාණයේ පරිගණක ගණනාවක් එකතු කරලා තමයි මේ super computing cluster එකක් හැදෙන්නේ කියලා තමයි normally understanding එක තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට this can be supercomputers මොන වගේ තැන්වලදීද used වෙන්නේ? If we consider in what kind of situations supercomputers are used, they are used for exploring the space, guiding missiles, satellites, weather forecast, exploring oil. You know, when you look at this availability of oil and all, and then scientific researchers, complex websites, decision support systems, 3D applications, and there are so many other examples that you can think of. So when you look at these examples also, it will be clear to you how the capacity of this supercomputer has to be very large, and the processing speed of this computer has to be very large. Now, for example, when you're guiding a missile, when you're exploring the space, right, it has to be fast and it has to have more accuracy, more processing speed, and it has to have a large capacity, right? So supercomputers have been identified therefore as the most suitable and the most powerful type of computer. Then මේවා එක වෙලාවකට එක ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑම් එකක් විතරයි මේ සුපර් කම්පියුටර්ස් රන් කරන්නේ. නමුත් ඒක හැකි ඉක්මනින් රිසල්ට්ස් ලබා දෙන්න හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා වඩා නිවැරදිතාවයකින්. ඒ වගේම වඩා වැඩි කැපැසිටි එකක් මේ සුපර් කම්පියුටර් එකට තියෙනවා. අපි ඒ එක්සිකියුට් කරන්න කියන එක ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑම් එක. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපි එක ටාස්ක් එකයි මේ කම්පියුටර් එකට දෙන ලද අවස්ථාවක දෙන්නේ. නමුත් ඒ ටාස්ක් එක පුළුවන් තරම් ඉක්මනින් රිසල්ට්ස් අරන් දෙන්න හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා සුපර් කම්පියුටර් එකකට. right? ඒ වගේම මේවා තව කම්පියුටර්ස් ගණනාවකට කනෙක්ට් වෙලා තමයි කලින් මම කිව්වා වගේ හැදිලා තියෙන්නේ. So those are the basic types of computers that we are going to talk about today. So if I quickly go back to what we have talked so far, right? There were 6 basic types of computers. We gave you an introduction with a brief detailing to each type of these computers. අපි computers වර්ග 6ක් ගැන කතා කරා. Embedded computers, right? Device එකකට attach කරලා තියෙන computers කියලා අපි මේවා හඳුනාගත්තා. ඒ වගේම තමයි mobile devices අපිට පාස්වෙන් එහා මෙහා රැගෙන යා හැකි device එකක්, small screen එකක්, small keyboard එකක් එක්ක හැදිලා තියෙන devices. එතකොට personal computers ගැන අපි කතා කරා. ඒකේ versions කීපයක් තුනක් අපි කතා කරානේ. personal computer එකක්, desktop computer එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අපි desk එකක් මත තියලා පාවිච්චි කරන එක. එහෙම නැත්නම් portable computer එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. notebook එකක්, tablet එකක්, netbook එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම thin client. එහෙම නැත්නම් internet appliance එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒතර thin client එකක් සහ internet appliance එකක් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා අපි අඳුනගත්තා. ගොඩක්ම දුරට පරිගණකයක් අපි ජාල තාක්ෂණය භාවිතා කරලා යම් ජාලයකට සම්බන්ධ වෙලා ඒක හරහා යම්කිසි අපි ටාස්ක් එකක් කම්ප්ලීට් කරගන්න අවස්ථාව. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒක භාවිතා කරලා යම්කිසි විදියකින් අපි තොරතුරු data processing එකක් කරගන්න අවස්ථාව, information ලබා ගන්න අවස්ථාවක අපිට internet appliances පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම අපි කතා කරා හතරවෙනි වර්ගීකරණය mid range servers. mid range servers අපි අඳුනගත්තා medium size computer එකක්. එතකොට මේක පොඩි network එකක් ඇතුලේ යම්කිසි specific task කිහිපයක් ඉෂ්ට කරගන්න තමයි අපි mid range server එකක් පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. එතකොට hospital එකක්, ඉස්කෝලයක්, එහෙම නැත්නම් university එකක් ඇතුලේ වගේ, එහෙම නැත්නම් business organizations එකක් ඇතුලේ මේ වගේ computer එකක් use කරන්න පුළුවන්. අපිට limited අපිටම designated activities කීපයක් ඉෂ්ට කරගන්න. එතකොට mid range server එක compare කරොත් අපි mainframe computer එකකට, mainframe computer එක තමයි අපි පස්වෙනි වර්ගීකරණයක් විදිහට හඳුනගත්තේ. mid range server එකට වඩා ගොඩක් power එක අතින් වැඩි කියලා අපි හඳුනගන්නවා mainframe computer එකක්. එතකොට large organizations වල mainframe computers තමයි ගොඩක් use වෙන්නේ. ඒවා තව ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ branches, SBUs, units connect කරන්න mainframes use කරනවා. mainframe computers වල information වලට access කරන්න පුළුවන් මේ companies ඇතුලේ networks වලට connect වෙලා. Right? You can easily gain access to the information in mainframe computers, which is a centralized computer hosting all this information through a dedicated network, right? And we say that mainframes essentially need to be operating 24 hours a day to give unbroken service to all the parties attached to that network, to that computer, right? Then we talked about supercomputers. අපි අන්තිමට කතා කරේ 6 වෙනි වර්ගීකරණය supercomputers. මේක අපි අඳුනගත්තා ඊටාම වේගවත්, ඒ වගේම මිලෙන් අධිකයි, ඒ වගේම ඒකේ තියෙන අපි කියනවා processing capability එක පැත්තෙන් ගොඩක් ඉහළයි supercomputers කියන ඒවා. එතකොට මේවා පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් missile guidance වලදී, satellites use කරද්දී, weather forecast, oil exploration වලදී මේ වගේ හරීම සූක්ෂම විදි analysis කරන්න ඕනේ අවස්ථාවලදී අපිට කියන decision එකේ precision එක අපි කියනවා එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒකේ තියෙන නිවැරදිතාවය ඉතාම ඉහළ වෙන්න ඕනේ අවස්ථාවලදී අපි use කරනවා super computers. එතන මෙතන මේ image එකේ පෙන්නලා තියෙන්නේ super computer එකක image එකක්. Now you can see how large it is by size, and you can imagine the processing power that this type of computers can have, and also imagine the area that you might need to accommodate this type of computer, right? So for today, I think we can stop at that point, and on the next day we can talk about computers and society in order to end the chapter. Today, other than talking about types of computers, we talked about computer generations, and we understood 5 different types of computers as well, right? So I hope you all are clear on the distinguishing factors that we identified in between these generations, what is special about each generation. So you should be able to say what was the special feature about each generation if we ask you, right? So, so far, are there any more questions on your part? Any more clarifications? Now there's a question on a mini computer. So basically, now if we consider the size of computers, right? These personal computers which we use for domestic purpose are usually referred to as microcomputers, right? But the mini computers came before that, where mini computers were not used for personal use mainly, right? So usually mini computers were introduced for business or industrial use at the outset. Only after that, there was the introduction of this personal computer, right? So I hope that is clear to you. There was a question regarding that. So any more questions? So today, actually, we covered heavily theoretical content, right? I understand it might be capacity-wise a little bit much for you, but then again, these are things that you should have an understanding about definitely. So computer generations and types of computers are once again things that you should have a basic understanding about. So that is why we had to cover that entire part within the day, so that it's easier when we move forward to the rest of the lectures. So when you come on the next day, what you can do is you can go through this last part of the first chapter, which talks about computers and society, right? This talks about benefits of a computer oriented society as well as certain risks of a computer oriented society. අපි පරිගණක ආශ්‍රිත සමාජයක තියෙන වාසි වගේම එහි තියෙන්න පුළුවන් risks එහෙම නැත්නම් අවදානම් ගැන කතා කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා මේ chapter එක ඉවර කරන්න කලින්. ඔයගලන්ට මේ ගැන කියවලා ඔයගලන් දන්න තොරතුරු අරගෙන යන්න පුළුවන් ක්ලාස් එකට. අපිට මේක ඩිස්කෂන් එකක් විදියට කන්ඩක්ට් කරන්න පුළුවන්. අපි එනම් මෙතනින් ලෙක්චර් සීරීස් එක අදට ලෙක්චර් එක අපි ඉවර කරලා අපි 10ට ආපහු හම්බෙනවා ඔයගලන්ගේ in class discussion එක කරන්න. in class discussion එක අපි ආවම අපි අද බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ mainly ඔයගලන් එක්ක කතා කරන්න එක ෆෝරම් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ ෆෝරම් එකේ සමහර කට්ටිය අපි දැක්ක ideas දාලා තියෙනවා. හරි forum discussion එක අපි class එක ඇතුලේ කතා කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ඕගලන්ට තව එක activity එකක් available කරලා තියෙනවා LMS එකේ. ඒ තමයි ඕගලන්ගේ review question 2 එක. හරි. sorry review question 1. හරි. first review question එක අද අපි in class discussion එකක් විදියට කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ඒ දෙක අපි LMS එකේ දැන් available කරනවා. ඕගලන්ට පොඩි break එකක් අරන් පොඩි ඕනනම් යාළුවොත් එක්ක discuss කරන්න පුළුවන්. You can have a discussion with your friends on the activities which are made available on the LMS and come prepared for the in class discussion. So I assume there are no more questions. So I will interpret the silence in my benefit, and I assume that there are no more questions. In that case, I think we can finish the class. Right. All right. So there's one more question on a thin client. Right. Yes, one more question on a thin client. So thin client basically it's a computer that runs from resources stored on a central server computer, right? So instead of a localized hard drive, there's a centralized server which serves to a specific network, as well as these thin clients, they work by remotely connecting or connecting from a distant location, right? That gives the user the ability to connect from a distant location to this computer. And many applications, many sensitive data might be stored in this particular computer. Basically, what you have to understand here is that through a network only, you gain connectivity to these types of computers to a data repository, maybe sensitive information, right? Maybe information specific to your organization, right? Through a network, you are gaining access to a thin client, right? So I don't think you need to have a lot of in detail understanding about a thin client. Just for the time being, you can have a general understanding about what sort of thing it can do and what is the main purpose of a thin client, right? So if I go to deep technical knowledge about a thin client, it won't be necessary at this point in time. Right. So I think there are no more questions, right? Right. Right. So I think we can end the class at this point. So thank you very much then for joining today. So you can once again take some time and while at home, carefully go through the theory parts that we covered, because these will be tested at your exam at some point, right? We cannot assure that it will be this part, but you need to definitely have an understanding and answerability. So carefully go through these theory parts we covered and have a clear understanding about these concepts, right? Okay, then thank you for joining with the lecture today, and have a great day. We'll meet you all at 10 a.m. with the in-class discussion.